Okay? The problem with this is that there is no way that the majority, the white people, will just sit back and let this happen, okay? You're gonna have a lot of violence, a lot of conflict. Because from the white perspective, this is population replacement. Okay? If we just let demographic trends continue, if these outsiders just have a lot of kids and we don't have the kids, then eventually our culture will be destroyed. And they're right. Okay? Historically, they're right. And how do we know? Because let's talk about some history. All right? So last semester, we talked about the Proto-Indo-Europeans. Right? Okay? So this is Europe. This is Asia. Anatolia. Okay. So remember that after the Ice Age, hunter-gatherers spread around, okay? Okay, so you have hunter-gatherers around. But then because as the earth was warming, this allowed for agriculture. And so a new group came into being that focused on agriculture, okay? These are the farmers. These are the farmers. And they arise primarily in Anatolia and the Levant and Mesopotamia because that was the warmest part of the globe that was most amenable to agriculture. But then, if you remember, there's always climate change. And because of climate change, they're now forced to migrate. Okay? And a lot migrated to Europe. And when they went to Europe, they forced out the hunter-gatherer. Okay? It was not violent because hunter-gatherers have very few people and they're allowed and they can move about. Okay? But eventually what happened is that the farmers were able to displace the hunter-gatherers. Okay? Now they're established in Europe. You also had farmers who went into the steppes. But remember from last semester, we discussed the steppes and how, because it's grassland, you can't actually farm there, or it's very hard to farm there, so they developed a new economy called nomadic pastoralism. Which is to say that they raised sheep, goat, and cows, and they migrated from one area of the grassland to the next, okay? And as a result, they became very strong, very aggressive people. And again, because of overpopulation, because of climate change, these people are now forced to migrate to Europe, okay? They migrate to Europe, and what happened now? Well, now there's a war that lasts 100 years, 20 years, in which the nomadic pastoralists, the Yamnaya or the Proto-Indo-Europeans, they displaced or they eliminated the farmers, okay? And so what happened, we know this from genetic studies, is that the men, the European farmers, were killed, and the women were taken as basically brides, okay? Slaves, basically. Okay, so this is a population replacement. And this, historically, is what happens. Okay? One group comes in and replaces the other. And throughout most of human history, this is a constant cycle because the steppes were extremely violent and chaotic. And this forces groups to constantly migrate to other places in search of safety. And in each time, there is population replacement. Okay? Primarily in the elite. Okay? So there are very few instances of where groups come together and they are peaceful. No, because you only have one elite, and one elite must replace the other elite. Okay? Does that make sense, guys? All right. So if this is historically the situation, how did we get into a situation where immigration has become the norm in today's world? Okay? Before, historically, we believed that you have to stay together as part of your group, otherwise you'll be eliminated. And now we believe that, hey, if you don't like where you are, it's okay, just get up and move somewhere else, and maybe there'll be better economic opportunities for you. This is a shift in mentality, a shift in mindset. Okay, this came about because of the British Empire. All right. Okay, so this is Europe. This is South America, USA, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. Okay, all right. So you have Spain. And Spain, because of the Ottoman Empire, Spain could not access the East Indies trade, okay? So it had to figure out new ways to access East Asia, China, India, because that was where a lot of spices were, okay? And there's a huge demand for spices. So they started to chart new areas, okay? Spain and Portugal primarily. And what they discovered was there's all this new territory in South America. Now, South America is interesting because in South America, you had a huge population and there was a lot of mineral wealth, silver and gold. And so what they could do was they could go over there and enslave the population, okay? So slavery. And then you convert them to Catholic religion. All right? So basically, the easiest areas to colonize, Spain and Portugal took right away. But then afterwards, Britain, England started to play this game as well. Okay? And they also sent colonists. But the problem was that there was no large population to enslave. Also, there were a lot, especially in the United States, there were a lot of aggressive Indians, okay, natives. And so the solution was the United States, after it won independence from Britain, it welcomed immigrants from Europe, specifically Ireland, Germany, Poland, these places. The reason why is they needed to displace the natives. Okay? And then immigrants were then encouraged to go to Canada and Australia to build their economies as well. So in other words, immigration today, it is a historical accident. The Americans were responding to the specific needs of that time, okay? They were a small population against a hostile people, the natives, in a very large area. And so they needed people to come and farm and industrialize the area. And that's why America welcomed immigrants. And this is new in human history, where you could go to a new place and become a citizen. Okay? Usually, if you went to a new place, you went because you were a slave. You were conquered in war, and you went as cheap labor. Okay? So in America, they welcome you as citizens if you're willing to contribute, and they allow you to get rich if you worked hard. Okay? Now fast forward, and America becomes an empire because it's allowing all this energy to concentrate in America. You have World War II. Okay, you have World War II, and America triumphs in World War II. And now America can set the entire rules of the game for most of the world, for Western Europe. And at this time, America said to Europe, you guys fought wars, you guys had fascism because you are a closed society, okay? Closed society means you don't want immigrants, you're all very nationalistic, and therefore you are violent. America won the war because America is an open society which welcomes immigrants, which is a multicultural society that encourages people to get rich and be happy. And so Europe, if you want to be like us, if we want to prevent World War III, then you have to become an open society as well and welcome immigrants just like we do. Okay? And that's why we have the situation where now Muslims are going to Europe and others are going to America. Okay? And what we need to recognize is that immigration, it's a new game developed because of certain historical circumstances, but it's not sustainable in the long term. And so the idea that you can just work hard in school, then go to America and become wealthy, that can't be true anymore. In the future, according to game theory, what's going to happen are these violent conflicts between different demographic groups, because each group is trying to set the rules of the game. Because whoever sets the rules of the game will always win the game, meaning they have access to the best jobs, they have the high status, and they have access to the best looking woman, which is ultimately what every man is looking for, okay? Status, attractive woman, power, money. Okay? All right, does that make sense, guys? All right, any questions? Okay, ask one question, then we'll finish class. Okay.
Can we really do something about the current immigration, or we don't have any ability to change it?
Okay, that's a great question, and I'm sure everyone's thinking of this question, which is like, what can we do about this situation? Well, I mean, the problem is, and I hate to say this, but immigration is not natural. Okay, and what I mean by that is that if you're born into a community, what is natural is for you to want to help this community grow and develop. You want to contribute to this community. What is not natural is for you to say, you know what, this community sucks, I'm gonna go find a new community. Because if everyone did that, then no communities could ever exist. Okay, so 99% of people, what their natural inclination to do is to want to work hard and make the community a better place. And that's what everyone should be doing. You're always gonna have minority people, maybe 1%, 2%, who are sort of strange and that they have different ideas. And they're not gonna be able to conform to the community, okay? And historically, these people have been killed by the communities. And so it's natural for them to get up and leave, okay? So, but that's only a small group of people. So what is natural is for people to want to just stay where they are because they love their neighbors, because they love their family, and they want to help their community get stronger and stronger. And unfortunately, because of globalization, because of mass media, because of the internet, for whatever reason, young people believe that what's important is their own individual happiness, their own academic opportunity. So I'm gonna go wherever there's more academic opportunity. So, for example, Chinese students, the very best, are like, you know what, I'm probably gonna make more money in the United States, so I'm gonna work hard, then immigrate to the United States, and then start my own company, get rich, and all that. And you know, some people have been very successful doing that. But if you think about it, this is not good for China, right? As a nation, why would you encourage your best and brightest to take their skills, move somewhere else, and contribute to that economy rather than to your own economy? And so we're in a very strange situation. And we are in this situation because for the longest time, America was a global hegemon and could write the rules of the game. And I keep on telling you guys this, whoever writes the rules of the game will always win, okay? So globalization was a system was set up so that America could extract from the world resources, and these resources include talent. Okay, so we have a situation where the best and brightest go to America because that's where they're most likely to thrive. But Now, the world is changing. America is no longer the global hegemon. Russia, China, these countries are rising as well. And so nations now are much more interested in being able to maintain their best and brightest, their talent, their human capital. And this is the way it should be. If you're born in China, then your priority ought to be like how to make China a better place. It shouldn't be like, I'm gonna work really hard in school so that I can get a visa to go study in the United States. That makes no sense. Okay? So, and look, the reality is that if you're in the United States, you can make a lot of money, but you're still gonna be low status. Okay, and that's the situation I found myself in North America, where I worked really hard in school, I went to Yale, and I could have made a lot of money as a lawyer or as a doctor, but I recognized that, you know what, if I just stay where I am, I'm not gonna ever achieve my potential. I'm not going to achieve status in America. I may be wealthy, but I'm never gonna achieve high status. That's why I chose to come to China, because I thought there were more opportunities to obtain higher status in China than in the United States, where I'm not white. I'm East Asian, and there's gonna be a lot of stereotypes and prejudice against me because I'm East Asian. Okay? And quite honestly, I was right in my assessment. All right, so yeah, you're saying, what can East Asians in America do about this, right? And unfortunately, according to game theory, they're stuck where they are, okay? That's why, I chose to leave. But if you're East Asian in America, I'm not saying for everyone, okay? I'm sure there are like thousands of very happy East Asians who've married very well and they have very good lives, okay? But for the majority, you can have decent lives, but you're always gonna be low status. And quite honestly, a lot of East Asians are happy with that situation. A lot of East Asians are just happy, getting by, making good money, and they really don't worry about status. Okay? But the problem is that their children and grandchildren are kind of screwed over because it's going to be very hard for them to marry. Okay? And again, there's a lot of East Asian men who are single and they have problems on the dating market. Okay? All right. Any more questions, guys? Is that clear? Great, okay. So we will continue this next week.